Hey there, I'm Jama, and over the past few years, I've become very interested in onomatology, the study of names. I've never really liked my name until I researched the meaning of it. My name means paradigm shifter, and I'd like to shift your paradigm by shining a light on onomatology and how it can potentially help you find your purpose, help you communicate better with others, or even both. In each episode, I ask someone 8 basic questions regarding their first name. So sit back, relax, and try to shift your paradigm with this next episode. All right. In today's episode, I'm really excited to interview this person because I have not spoken with anybody with this first name. I remember actually going to school with someone, but I didn't really get to know her. So I'm excited to talk with Amber. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Yeah. And Amber and I met at the Columbus Disrupt HR event when I was there. I know she had a colleague that was also a speaker. So I was really happy and excited that she was there in the audience. So I would love to just kind of introduce you, and if you can give a few like facts about, where you're at and what you do in your job and any kind of fun fact you want to share with the listeners.
Yeah, great. Well, first and foremost, thanks again for having me. Happy to be here and participate in this session with you today. My name is Amber. I am the director of consulting for Red Envelope Consulting. We are a full service human resources fractional organization, and we provide kind of end to end human resources support for a wide range of organizations. And in some cases, that's serving as kind of the HR department, so to speak, and in other cases, it's a little bit more project based. Um, in my personal experience, I tend to gravitate towards, HR compliance activities, policy and procedure, performance management, leadership development and training, and just overall what we call scalable workforce solutions. And I'm really just most passionate about building kind of a strong HR foundation that subsequently enables, just a good culture, a high performing team, and a great place to work. Um, a little bit about me just on a quick personal level. I have a family. I have 4 sons who are very active in their own rights, and we have a dog. I spend most of my time in the evenings and weekends on a version of a sports field with my boys. And then when I have time, I enjoy cooking and bargain hunting. So that's just a little bit about me.
I love it. Very cool. Yeah, 4 boys. I feel like that would be
Yes,
very busy.
they sure do. They sure
Yeah.
do.
Awesome. Well, and before I asked you to be on the podcast, did you actually know the meaning of your first name?
I know what I would call the basic meaning. So
Mhm.
and really what that is that it's a color, and it's a shade of, call it yellow, orangish, brown, depending upon what you've potentially seen in the amber color. It might be any version of those, or some combination thereof.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, your name is very, I love your name because it has such a neat, like, I don't know. There's a lot to it in terms of when I first looked it up, I found it means a fossilized tree resin valued for its golden yellow to deep orange brown color, originating from Arabic and adopted to Middle English, and it signifies warm, sunny, and in some contexts, fierce or jewel quality. And it talks a lot about like evoking natural beauty. It also refers to, in certain Indian languages, that word could mean the sky, which I thought was really interesting. And it became popular and peaked in like the 1970s and 1980s. So that's all I have
Yeah.
on it. But it seems, I don't know, it's beautiful. Like whenever I think about it, it does make me think of like a sunny, warm day.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's funny because I too associate a lot of it with some of the colors of nature, the seasons.
Yeah.
And I appreciate what you shared about the kind of fierceness element too, and whether that fierceness is in color or just in, how it shows up literally and figuratively. I mean, I like to think of myself as an individual who's pretty passionate about the things I embark in and participate in. And so I think, at times passion can be, a bit of a fierce quality too. So I appreciate what you
Yeah.
shared there.
Yeah. Awesome. So I take it you like the meaning?
I do. I do. It's funny because kind of going back to what you shared, I associate particularly the colors of, yellows and oranges and browns and even those, some red hues. I associate those very much with like the season of fall.
Mm.
The cooling change of temperatures, the red, the yellow, the orange trees all around, the smells of apple and cinnamon and pumpkin spice and crackling fires and things like that. So, and it's always my favorite time of year too. And candidly, I don't know that until kind of talking about it now that I necessarily associated or put two and two together this concept of, oh, my name has these meanings, and I've always had gravitated towards this time of year. So,
Yeah. I love the fall. It is my favorite as well.
yes,
Especially because of like the smells and the different types of pumpkin and
exactly, exactly.
yeah, that's awesome. Well, and do you know how your parents chose your first name?
I do actually. So again, it's funny you mentioned earlier that you went to school with an Amber. Believe it or not, as simple as it sounds, that's actually exactly how my mom named me. She was in high school, and there was a girl named Amber who she ironically wasn't necessarily like close friends with, but she said at the time the name was pretty rare and super unique, and she just always really loved it. And so lo and behold, she named her daughter. And I am my mother's only daughter. And so yeah, she named me Amber.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
And thinking back growing up, have you ever had the thought cross your mind, I wish I had a different name?
I did.
Yeah.
So it's funny because at one point I went through this whole phase where I really wanted to go by my middle name rather than my first name. And I'm not really sure why, other than at the time, I remember feeling like my middle name had a more feminine and kind of beautiful connotation to it. And so I just remember feeling kind of a greater connection and significance to my middle name because it was actually after my maternal grandmother. And, versus it being kind of just a name that my parents simply liked, so to speak. So I
Yeah.
felt this deeper sense of connection to it. And so it's interesting now as a parent myself, I can appreciate having a combination of both a certain liking or affinity to a name, but also wanting to incorporate a namesake in something like a middle name or what have you. We've done very similar things with our own children. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Do you mind me asking what your middle name is?
Yeah, sure. So it's Rebecca.
Okay.
And when I was younger, like I said, there was just always something about it that kind of drew me more to it. It felt more feminine. And so I remember for a period of time, my dad, just to kind of mess with me, then would call me Becky, as just to kind of, like I said, to mess with me a little bit. Because he knew at the time I was feeling like maybe I want to go by Rebecca instead of Amber.
Mhm.
But it's funny because then in thinking about our discussion today, I did maybe cheat a little bit and looked up, well, I wonder what the meaning of Rebecca is.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, it has this representation of being kind of captivating and enchanting with beauty. And there's also just deep religious roots in the name. So, which feels very powerful and kind of connected to me. So,
Yeah.
um, again, I didn't know that at the time that it necessarily had kind of this more beautiful or feminine feeling as what I felt, but turns out it actually has some of those meanings as well.
Yeah. Well, if you were forced to change your first name, would you change it to Rebecca or would you change it to something else?
That's a really good question. I think I probably would defer to Becca or Rebecca. because I haven't otherwise thought of an alternative name other than that. And I do still think it's really beautiful. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And has your name ever been mispronounced?
So you want to know what's funny is I don't really ever get mispronunciations, but I am regularly called a different name. And
Really?
and what's funny is, and it's like it happens in the most, random scenarios where I don't even necessarily know someone, or the name that I get called isn't otherwise present in the room, but for whatever reason, I get called it. And so that name is Amanda, which obviously
Oh,
sounds very similar to Amber, but still,
yeah.
in my opinion, uniquely different.
Yeah.
But it happens a lot. And
Really?
like I said, I'm not really sure why, but it does.
Oh, wow. When that
Yeah.
happens, like, what's your like initial gut feeling?
I mean, my gut feeling initially is it's not my name, and I don't
Yeah.
think my name sounds like Amanda, other than obviously the first two letters.
Yeah.
But I think the balance of it is distinct enough that it is still different. So I'm always a little perplexed as to why that seems to be a natural gravitation to people, other than, for all I know, even though there might not be another Amanda present, maybe that person knows and, has a close Amanda relationship in their life type thing, or maybe I'm just another Amanda's doppelganger. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. And so I have two more questions for you.
Okay, great.
Do you think that the meaning of your name has any relevance on the way that you act or the way that you see the world around you?
You know, uh, it's funny because kind of linking it back to a portion of our conversation earlier, I do think so. And so, like, in a literal sense, I shared earlier that kind of I associate some of the elements of my name, particularly in the form of the colors with, the seasons, and then the fall season in particular, and the smells, and the imagery and things like that that I'm particularly drawn to at that time of year. And it got me thinking that I appreciate that there are some people who really gravitate to living in certain climates that are more consistent over the span of a year. For example, living somewhere southern or on the West Coast where it's, sunny and warm for a good majority, if not the whole year type thing. Whereas I've always really been drawn to living in a place where I get to experience the distinct transitions of all four seasons. I really enjoy just nature and being in the outdoors and just kind of the natural beauty that you see with seasonal transitions. And so I bring that up because I also really fundamentally believe that the seasons can trigger our moods, what we associate with different seasons and different times of year, or nostalgia or new beginnings. And so, all of those shifts and kind of the macro environment around us, I think, can consciously or subconsciously influence how we behave, and the moods we have, and other things at different points in time. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. I love that. I love
thanks.
living in the Midwest too.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I'm born and raised in the Midwest, so I have a natural affinity for it, but
Yeah.
I do genuinely enjoy, despite I think as each season nears its end, as is natural for all of us, we're ready to move into the next season.
Yeah.
But I do genuinely enjoy those transitions.
Yeah, for sure. When I will say, I don't know you all that well, but you've come across as such a warm person, like a very
Oh, thank
inviting and
you.
warm person to talk to. So I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've asked a lot of people to be on my podcast, and I get a wide variety of responses, and yours
Oh,
was
I bet.
very kind.
Thank you.
Um, and my last question. So,
Okay.
Um, when I first started this podcast, I was wondering what other books were saying about the significance of names. And I just looked up what is the best-selling book of all time, happens to be the Bible. And I thought it was really interesting the more that I was trying to research that there were quite a few people whose names were changed, and it mentions, like, for example, in Genesis, God told Abram to change his name to Abraham and to change his wife's name from Sarai to Sarah. And I was just curious what your opinion is about why something like that would even be mentioned.
Yeah, so it's a really good question. Religion agnostic, what I appreciate about the Bible, which, certainly is a combination of the Old Testament and the New Testament, is that it's embodied with, call it philosophies and scripture that, despite its ancient establishment, is still very relevant today. And so, to that end, it does kind of trigger this thought process, if you will, of perhaps amongst other reasons, which I don't know what they are in terms of, some of those changes of those names that you mentioned. But I do wonder if part of it is rooted in this idea of, evolution. And what I mean by that is evolved inspirations, gaining perspective, diversity of thought. That again kind of just comes with some of the philosophies that I think you find in the Bible. And so um, it seems like somewhere along the way there was, call it a shift in thought, a shift in circumstance, or maybe just out of pure desire. I'm not sure, but there's something triggered and evolved interpretation, pronunciation, some other basis that may have, been influenced by either a macro or micro circumstance at the time. And so you know, bringing that all kind of full circle, in general, I'm a really big believer in evolving my own thinking, shifting my priorities and kind of giving myself permission to expand my outlook based on different phases or milestones or experiences or education that I just kind of acquire along the way.
Yeah.
And I don't what I would clarify is that I don't think that means a change in who you are as a person or your foundational values or beliefs at their core. But it does mean just learning to be open to expanding your views, gaining insights, kind of putting yourself in interactive environments where you're just, learning something on a day to day. So I say all that to say, maybe in its simplest form, the change in name spellings and name pronunciations evolved or stemmed from this concept of evolution and having the foresight to prepare us all for progress, advancement, development, etc., that I think just kind of shapes who we become as individuals over the evolution of our lifespan.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. I love
Yeah.
that perspective. That's a
So,
good one.
well,
Cool.
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, those are all my questions. Did you have any questions for me?
Candidly, I love what you've done in terms of, really kind of digging into the meaning of different folks' names. I'd love to, just learn from you in terms of, given the number of folks that you've spoken with, do you find that when people really, take a minute to reflect on their name, do they feel a sense of connection to it, either in the way that they behave or the definition or whatnot once they kind of learn more about it? Or do you find that some people, I guess for lack of a better term, feel disconnected to it?
Yeah. Wow, that's a great question. I think it depends. I do feel like the majority of the people that I've spoken with,
Hmm.
they have they have some enlightening moments and some, oh, like, yeah, now I'm gonna think about this more. Or
Yeah, I love
even,
that.
yeah, I even interviewed this guy that he told me that having the conversation just helped solidify his purpose in life and helped him
Oh,
feel more
interesting.
confident. Yeah. So like if I can even like be a part of something that helps boost someone's confidence in who they are or who they want to become, like that's a huge like thing for me, a huge blessing. So I'm happy that I can kind of use this platform in a way to shed any kind of light that I can on helping somebody feel that they understand themselves better. Because I do think self-discovery and
Mhm.
self-reflection is important
Yes,
to grow.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I found the opportunity to be really reflective, and so thank you for that.
Yeah. Course.
And I think you're spot on. The kind of self-discovery and self-reflection elements are really important for all of us.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this time. It was great getting to know you better.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe or follow the podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps me continue bringing you meaningful conversations with remarkable guests. Don't forget to tune in next time for more insightful discussions and inspiring stories. Until then, thank you for listening and keep striving to make a positive impact wherever you are. And don't forget to tap into the meaning of your own name to find a deeper sense of confidence in your purpose.